Welcome in, Legionnaires of the Lariat. I am back as host, answering all the countless emails of when am I going to be hosting again, taking it from Steven. Joined with me today, as always, for this special episode of our top 5 favorite wrestlers of all times is stevezapf and scarps Esquire. But forget about those two jamokes because we have a special guest with us, welcoming Lindsey Jordan to the show for the first time. Lindsey Jordan is the promoter of Contract Professional Wrestling, international president of the OIWA, and host of Comic-Cons across the UK. Lindsey, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If we had a soundboard, that would have been like...
we have the cheers, don't we?
We do. Hold on.
Steve, you're really shitting the bed, then.
Hey, Lindsey!
Wait, this one too.
Sorry, Lindsey. It's whoa.
That's way too much.
Like
cheers.
we're in France right now.
That's amazing.
It's like 40 seconds of cheering on that one.
It's like we're in Lyon, France here. This is amazing.
It's we're in Lyon, France.
Oh my God, the European crowds do it different. Like British people just sit like that the whole time. France did not let up at all.
No, not even a little bit.
No chill.
Oh, we are so excited to have you, though. I know you and I had done a show, Coal Mines, about a week or two ago.
Yeah.
And had so much fun that we had to have you on this one, too.
Yeah, it was a right riot. I apologize in advance.
I think more importantly, we just needed somebody with a cool accent. It really complements us being terrible when we speak. So thank you very much.
The question is, can you understand what I say? Because I do talk pretty... Exactly. Exactly. I talk really fast.
You're with the right crew. We were all born and raised in New Jersey, where our actual accent is just talking really fast. So I think you're in a good group. As long as you're not in a huge crowd of people, I'll understand what you're saying. I'm the worst at understanding what anyone is saying in the crowd. But welcome in. I think this is, we're really excited about today's show. Like I had mentioned, it's going to be our top 5 wrestlers with a couple other things sprinkled in. Just, this is not a Mount Rushmore. These are not the best wrestlers of all times, except for my list, because obviously mine's perfect. But but this is more really kind of looking into our favorite match, like some of our favorite matches with them, storylines, why they're our favorites, why they're on these lists. Everyone could put together a Mount Rushmore. They all start blending together when you kind of see some of the same people. Not to say some of these people wouldn't end up on that list, but this is more the ones that we grew up with, the ones that we made us wrestling fans, some that are happening right now that are absolutely perfect on what we want to see in today's wrestling. So without further ado, Lindsey, I'm going to kick it to you because one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, not on my list, but someone we actually were in the independents together with, that I don't know why he's fallen off the face of the earth and no one kind of hears from anymore, but El Generico. I didn't expect to see this on your list. I remember seeing him when he first started breaking out. And Sami Zayn stealing his moves.
I know. Shocking behavior. Totally shocking behavior.
Just rude.
It totally was. So, yeah, I was like a massive... obviously, I hit the Attitude Era, loved it. Then that started dying off. And then that was me done with WWE. I took a step back and I was like, I can't get behind anybody now. So switched to TNA and Ring of Honor. And at the time, Ring of Honor, you could not get your hands on it over here. When it first started becoming sort of mainstream where you could watch it, it was sort of round about 2009, 2010. And at that point, there was obviously the whole Generico and Steen battle was going on. And there was everything. Even in the mask, he was just so charismatic and so dynamic. And it just got me really excited about watching him. So I could have put Sami Zayn, but I'm proper old school El Generico.
Yeah.
Not to mention
Sami
coming
Zayn's
out
just a copycat.
That's what I'm saying. But also coming out to the Bouncing Soul song kind of helped him out tremendously with the ole, 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 ole.
I feel like Jack Black should have been El Generico and Nacho Libre. That should have been his name because it would have been perfect. It would have been absolutely killer.
That would have been perfect. Yeah, we actually got to see him a couple times when he was breaking into the kind of the independent scene. He showed up in Jersey All Pro a couple times, I think, Steve, right?
Jersey All Pro quite a bit. That's when they were.
Yeah.
They were using Steen and Generico were running their own Canadian promotion at that point for the most part. So it was like a group of like 4 or 5 of them would just travel around to different promotions, because I think that's where they got Beef Wellington from too, who did the butt punch. That was literally his finisher.
Amazing. That's amazing.
This is one of the reasons why I love these lists, because of picks just like that. That's why I wanted to start with that one, because whoever's listening right now, I doubt that they were like, oh, top 5 wrestlers. The first one talked about is going to be El Generico. So it was awesome. He did such great stuff when you can actually find it. Scarps, I'm going to go to you next, because I'm sure that you're just bursting to talk about your favorite of all times, and I'm just going to cut right to the chase.
I am.
Tell me about a brother.
I would just turn my hat around. For the people watching over on YouTube, let's just turn that Hulkamania hat right around. We're going Hulk Hogan, bud. Need I say more? I won't. It's Hogan. That's all I need to say.
I was hoping you would say a little bit more about him.
Oh, okay. So in that case, I will do that.
Just a scotch.
I mean, he's the reason that I fell in love with wrestling. He was larger than life in the 80s. Everybody knows his name. I mean, at one point, Hogan was a name in the household just like Michael Jackson was, or Michael Jordan. He was that big. Everybody knew who he was, and he was probably the first wrestler that I fell in love with and made me love the sport. So he's my guy, always and forever.
Yeah, I feel like he's everyone's first favorite wrestler, particularly when they're in our age group, because that's kind of how you get pulled into the spectacle of Hogan and all the amazing things he did all through our childhood and whatnot. I had the Hogan pillow person that I won every one of those matches.
Thank God those aren't recorded.
I wish they were. I wish they were. We were born way too soon.
I mean, none of us had injuries back then, so.
Speak for yourself. You didn't do it right then. Steve, I'm gonna go to you here. This is the person that I've always associated as your favorite wrestler as we grew up as kids. But the franchise, Shane Douglas. I knew this was going to be on your list. Why don't you give us why is he your favorite, or one of your favorites?
So my 1 and 2 are really like a 1A and 1B. Shane Douglas, growing up and being an angsty teen, I guess you could say, during his ECW era, if you want to go back to old ECW Shane Douglas promos, you can watch a man build a bridge and burn a bridge at the same exact time. I've never seen a guy do such great business and also feel like he's going into business for himself at the exact same moment. It actually made it feel more realistic. It was one of those where, and if you look, even the way he dressed and everything, Triple H all but stole his look in WWE once he became the game. Right down to the Kangol hat.
You know, when you're part of the group that kicks him out, does that mean you could take the gimmick as well?
I mean, it might be. I think that's what happens. Not to mention the entire triple threat gimmick. I love the group just in general. All those guys that were involved with Douglas, everyone from Malenko and Benoit to eventually Candido and Bigelow, and even Lance Storm was part of the triple threat for a little while. Like that was the time, again, 16, 17-year-old me, Shane Douglas. Yeah, let's punch it through on that one.
Like, I always love a good faction where you could believe that every single person in that group is the toughest guy and the best worker. And that's why the triple threat always worked so well.
Well, that's a lot like our friendship. You know, the group of us, we're so tough.
We're so tough.
Until now, because I'll put money on Lindsey taking any one of us down. So
I'm not taking that
just
bet.
I'm gonna take a step. I'll referee. I'll manage Lindsey. I'm cool with all that stuff. But you could go for it.
I'm actually happy she's in a different time zone right now, just because that means it probably can't happen. On the other side of what I was saying about Douglas, though, too, if you want to go back to his early work and see what a real, like, plucky baby face looks like, Shane Douglas's early stuff, like, especially with the dynamic dudes and stuff, he's the prototype for the good-looking baby face. So he kind of hits every aspect of the spectrum at some point for what a wrestler can and should be.
So for me, I'll move on to the next wrestler here. So try to keep it as tight as we can. So for me, someone who made the rules for himself and one of the best on the mic of all times. Just when you think you know all the answers, I change the questions. Is Rowdy Piper. In my opinion, top 2 on the mic of all times. I think he and Jake the Snake Roberts, like no one even comes close to them. You could say that a lot of the newer guys that kind of came through the Attitude Era, without these 2 guys, they don't come anywhere close to being as good as they are, in my opinion. His work, particularly his work in the Oregon territories and stuff like that, you go back, everyone knows, like you guys know, those that listen, I'm a big fan of the territory era, and that's where he really broke his teeth into this place. His feuds with Rick Martel, Buddy Rose, Snuka, and Killer Brooks, like those are areas to go back to and really hone in on those matches. Those are like awesome stuff that you can find on YouTube in like the grainiest of quality. If you can handle that, they're worth going for. I think one of the most brutal matches of all times that I absolutely love watching, go back to, is the dog collar match at Starrcade '83 with Greg Valentine. So those are some of the things that really get me into it, and the things that I don't know if everybody listening has really seen a ton of it, because I know that a lot of people really just focus on what happens in WWE, WCW, and these are the areas that like I love to like push people. It's like you want to see real wrestling, you want to see some really cool stuff. Obviously, anything with Hogan back in the 80s, the tag team match at WrestleMania 1 are amazing things to really get a good feeling of who he is. I wish he was willing to do business a little bit more, because you could have probably seen him as world champion and like a bigger blow off with Hogan, though they were always afraid that he would never drop the belt. And even the stuff in WCW, I think we talked when we did the top 10 Mania, even the top 10 Mania matches. You guys know that I had my number 1 was Bret Hart versus Piper. That was, in my opinion, my favorite match of all times. He's had some great matches with some other people on my list, but if you look at some of the things in WCW, his fights with Ric Flair and some of the stuff even with Goldberg, he had some cool stuff. And I think the best kind of gimmick match at Mania was him and Goldust with the backlot brawl, where it started as a cinema kind of thing and it ended in the arena. Something I always pop for.
The other thing with Piper in that dog collar match is what people don't realize is they did that match a couple times because it got over so big the first time. So they beat the crap out of each other like that, like over the next few months. So
it's always the best and guys. Worst. It's like it's like, oh, we came up with this great idea. It was amazing. Great. Now go do it again.
Well, Piper's the reason I'm always out of bubblegum.
Is that why?
That's
or is
true.
It why you're always extra stocked on bubblegum?
No, I'm always out of it. Always out of it, just because.
Just always ready to kick some ass.
That's it, man.
Lindsey, I'm going to kick it back over to you. Again, someone that we met in the territory in our independent days and stuff like that, who I think is just kind of an unsung wrestler, unless you were really big into TNA at times. But Christopher Daniels being on your list, I absolutely love seeing this. Give us some reason why.
Yeah, so like I had touched on earlier, when I moved across and started watching TNA, it was just as the X Division was really properly getting lit, and Christopher Daniels for me always stood out. AJ is obviously phenomenal. We're going to go that way. Kazarian,
Pun?
love him. Yeah. But Christopher Daniels just was able just to pull so many moves out without any effort. Best moonsault ever. Just done, and that's it. Like, I would get proper watching it. And yeah, X Division matches, any of the X Division matches, Ultimate X matches with Christopher Daniels in were always pure fire. Just love him.
Not to mention his character work is off the charts.
Yeah.
He was supposed to be the hidden power, right?
Yeah,
Isn't that the rumor?
He was supposed to be the hidden power instead of McMahon.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine the difference of his career if they remove that hood and it's Christopher Daniels instead of Vince McMahon? First of all, it doesn't completely ruin that storyline, but him being the one that is telling Taker what to do, changes the whole trajectory of his career.
Yeah. And again, he is the unsung hero of it. Like, I haven't seen a great deal of his stuff on AEW, I'm not gonna lie, but old school TNA, Christopher Daniels, him and AJ had some of the best matches that I've ever seen. And it was the storytelling that was put behind it was just incredible.
Yeah, for me, I always thought
they went out there and put on. Oh, they went out there and put on the most banger of matches that you could ever have, because they're both just amazing wrestlers in between those ropes.
Yeah,
I always considered Christopher Daniels, AJ Styles, and Samoa Joe kind of the heart of TNA back in its golden day of it.
100%.
Anything that those guys did together, anything they did without each other, there was always you're always expecting a good match. And their styles, even though AJ Styles and Christopher Daniels, you can see a lot of overlap, but you throw Joe in there, who's a completely different worker, really elevates that whole thing. I like when you mash styles together, and you get a better product because of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just everybody feeds off each other. And sorry,
please, Lindsey, don't let me cut you off
each other. And everybody just, back in those days in TNA, everybody just fed off each other, and they all knew what brought out the best and made each other really stand out. And sorry.
No, that's great. I was going to kick over to Scarps, but his camera just went off. Are you still there, bud?
Oh, it's shoddy connection, man. I'm sorry. It's my plug.
Fair enough. So I'm going to go over to you. Literally, one of the unsung heroes of the independent circuit. One of my favorites too, but didn't make my list, surprisingly enough. But on your list, you have Icefire Steve Zapf.
What?
I do. So, I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't mention him for this list, because when it all, at the end of the day, is said and done, when it really boils down to is that this is his show. And I just felt like I would get the boot if I didn't put him on the list. That and his technical prowess and just, never say die attitude really just stood out for me. And again, as I said before we started recording, the fact that I got to go to one of his matches in a luchador mask forever just put him on a pedestal for me.
There's no evidence of it, but he had an absolute banger of a match at Rova Farms back in the day against another unsung hero of the independents, Mr. Showtime, Michael Wright, it was great. We killed that night in front of 30 people.
Some of the best matches happened there. 30 people.
Hey, we turned 30 complete non-wrestling fans into wrestling fans that night.
That's what frustration will do to you, is when it's everything around here sucks. Let's just go out there and put on the match what we want to put on. And we did. It was awesome.
So I remember the funniest part for me was getting to the ring. We had come up with our entire match. We have our entire storyline, what we're doing. We're tag team partners. We shouldn't be wrestling. And the ref, who was also the booker, looks at me and goes, "You guys are supposed to be mad at each other. That's why you're fighting." And I go, "Yeah, that's not what we're doing.
No one told us.
No one told us that. So that's not what we're doing." And he goes, "But," I go, "we're not doing that." And I remember looking at him right in the ring before Showtime got there. And I go, "If you don't like what we do, you can fire me."
And well, if they fired you, I wasn't going back. So
no, and it was a real easy firing too because they weren't paying us either.
yeah, but that was a great match. I will say my favorite match that didn't include me. Steve had an amazing match with Jay Lethal in an elementary school gymnasium where you get changed in the kindergarten room like before the match. They had a great match between the two of them. Jay Lethal was so young at the time, and he already had a great mind for the business. So that was always one of my favorite ones because there's a few matches that we actually wrestled in public against people who actually made it, and that was one of them. So that one always kind of lingers with me.
So I always say that outside of my matches with Showtime, obviously, and Jay Lethal, because those are kind of always the ones that I go back to. There's a 3-way match that I have. It's me. What was it? It was Gil. I always remember it was Gil Quest who took his gimmick from another wrestler, basically, like flat out stole it, and the other wrestler was from the same school as him. Like it was like this is just plagiarism. And Tommy Flo, I think his name was. He was actually signed for a little bit to OVW when it was developmental, and me and Flo had this amazing chemistry with each other throughout the match, and Quest was just became our whipping boy because we went in there and we're like, well, we'll just come up, we'll call a couple spots out here real quick, like, hey, just so you know, when I call this means that. And then when we went in there, it was, okay, we're just gonna go for 15 minutes, and if you hear this, that means this. And he was like, well, what? And Quest was like, why don't we do this? Okay, we'll call it out there. But what about, dude? It was like 15 times we had to tell him we're just gonna call it all out there. And there was a point, the match was supposed to go 15 minutes. It was for a promotion that actually gave us the countdown for that's 5 minutes into the match. And we heard 5 minutes into the match, and Quest grabbed my head and goes, okay, let's go home. I go, and I tossed him off of me and told him to fuck off.
So Stephen, while you're talking, I'm gonna kick over to you as well, because as much as we could talk about the greatest hits of Steve Zapf all day long, I think I'm gonna stop you before you go too deep. So
deep cuts.
I'm gonna keep your last one and this one in the triple threat, though I think Chris Candino might be a little upset that he didn't make the list because you already have two of them. But you have one of my honorable mentions that I'll mention later. But Bam Bam Bigelow, Beast from the East. Tell me about it.
So, hometown boy, as far as I'm concerned, everyone from New Jersey has a Bam Bam Bigelow story. You either knew him, you partied with him, you saw him wrestle, you got beat up by him. It's something. It might have been actually all of those things. You saw him wrestle, then you partied with him, then he beat you up. It could have happened all in the same night. As far as I'm concerned, if not the greatest, one of the greatest big men ever. Bam Bam did things that a man that's 400 pounds should not do. If you want to really get into some of his really, really great work, go check out his Japanese stuff, especially the stuff where he's tag teaming with Vader. You want to see 4 men, just men that make you feel like boys, beat the crap out of each other. There are matches between Bam Bam Bigelow and Big Van Vader as the tag team champions versus the Steiner brothers. It's 4 bullies that just get in there and knock the crap out of each other. And with the utmost athleticism too, because you have 2 All-American wrestlers, Bam Bam, who is just doing agility stuff he shouldn't do, and Vader, who's a former NFL player. All around, these guys just destroyed each other.
Did they ever wrestle? Bam Bam wrestled Earthquake, right? Did they ever wrestle each other?
I think they might have had a match at one point. I think Bam Bam was. I think the start of Bam Bam's second run in WWE was like kind of the end of Earthquake's run, so they might have done. They definitely might have done something. Bam Bam had a lot of good big man matches with guys like One Man Gang as well in his first run with WWE. I know there's always comments from kind of old school minds that because when Bam Bam first came in, they had him with a much more like a biker gimmick, and he was just the tough guy with the flaming tattooed head and stuff. I feel like them getting him the bodysuit really, really made him. Like, it was like him having the flaming bodysuit with the flaming head and just everything. Honestly, I think that was it stayed with him forever because it was the right gimmick for him.
Lindsey, not to put you on the spot, but I'm gonna put you on the spot. You mentioned Christopher Daniels' best moonsault ever. You call out Tiffany Stratton's prettiest moonsault ever. They have a very similar thing. What's more impressive, that amazing, perfectly executed moonsault, or a moonsault from someone like Bam Bam Bigelow or Big Van Vader to come off the top rope with that much meat and just perfect a moonsault? What's your opinion on that?
For me, it has to be someone pulling a move out that you would not expect. So again, the likes of doing a sunset flip when you're a big dude, nobody expects it. And if you can execute it without killing somebody, I'm all for it. And that was the one type of thing with Bam Bam where there would just be this burst from nowhere that nobody was expecting. And for a big guy to be able to move the way he could, 100%. Right there behind you.
The thing that impressed me the most about Bam Bam Bigelow was his WrestleMania main event with LT, because he took a professional football player that had no experience in the ring and had an actual main event match that wasn't just like made to like, it's not a Floyd Mayweather match with Big Show where they kind of made it a boxing match and it was all about punching. Like, LT was a wrestler in that match, and like he did a pretty solid match. Is it the best main event of WrestleMania history? Absolutely not. But it was like I didn't know that they just smashed this together if you just watched that for the first time. So that was one of those. And then I feel like you can't talk about Bam Bam without talking about him putting Taz through the mat. That was one of my favorite spots of all times. Whenever I think about Bam Bam, him going in there, and I think he has one of the best finishing moves of all times. The greetings from Asbury Park. It's the safest way to do a tombstone, in my opinion. I don't think I've ever heard of anyone getting hurt, except for Bam Bam.
Except for Bam Bam himself.
Yeah, except for Bam Bam, because they wanted him taking bigger and bigger guys into that move, and you just sit down hard with that. You're just compacting your spine
on top of his own very minuscule physique.
Yeah, exactly.
The thing is, there's a lot of cushioning if you're taking that tombstone. There's a lot of in those big old solid legs.
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
that you're gonna have a softer landing. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of sweat built up in there too.
No.
Bam Bam doesn't sweat. Do you see the fire on his head? He is immune.
It's the neoprene, bro. It's the singlet. That's.
I'll go. Steve, you good? You want me to move on?
Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna go to my favorite of all times. The person that I kind of my whole gimmick when I was wrestling was half stolen from Mr. Perfect Kurt Hennig. Like, his actual style of wrestling is something that I like had to emulate. I didn't want to. I had to. There was just no way around it. I know that like the matches that I won in wrestling, they were via the Perfect Plex, and I would never ever let anyone kick out of it. Again, not because of me, because I had too much respect for him. And the one area that I would love people to go back to and really watch, that I feel like everyone missed, was his time in the AWA when he was actually world champion. And he had the two best kind of clinics to watch with him was with Nick Bockwinkel, and which I think a lot of people have heard of. It's when he actually wins the championship, which is amazing, but also the stuff with Jerry the King Lawler. I feel like no one ever talks about that stuff when it comes to Mr. Perfect. And they're some of my favorite matches of all time, even though Mr. Perfect never seems to win any of them, but that's not here today. I can't help bad booking. But those are, like, in the ring, he's absolutely fantastic. I feel like once he got to WCW and WWE, he never made it to the very top of the card. But he's the one, in my opinion, that absolutely made the Intercontinental title that workhorse title, that thing that everyone wanted to. There was other people who helped elevate that title with Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon and all those guys. But Perfect was right there in that. And a lot of those guys had gone on to see bigger success and never quite got there. And actually, if you even look at some of the later stuff when he comes back to WWE after the fact, he puts on some pretty cool matches. He had a little clinic with Stone Cold that I don't think anyone looks back at. And there's an absolute banger of a match with him versus Tommy Dreamer that I absolutely loved. It was some random Raw throwaway match, but it was fun. And you could see he was having fun and Dreamer was having a lot of fun with that one. So those are some of my favorites. Like if you're into wrestling and you just want to throw on any Kurt Hennig match, like you'll be happy afterwards.
So I love his second run because they almost do a mockery of his first run sometimes, where like they do the Mr. Perfect vignettes again, but instead of having him like do everything perfectly, like it's him thinking he's doing it perfectly and then like walking away. And it's like, we're not even done yet, man.
It's when you throw the basketball backwards and just assume it went in and you walk away and everyone cheers for you. The one there's a couple of my favorite matches of him, but the Loser Leave Town with him and Ric Flair was so fun. It was one of those cool ones that actually made sense because obviously Flair left to go back to WCW at that moment in time. But that was a good one to really get into. And he had a lot of good stuff with like the Texas Tornado. So there are so many good matches that you can go back and watch of his. Just for some reason, I don't know why, and I'll be asked this question forever, that he never made it quite to the top, though he did in AWA. So I always count the AWA as like one of the world champions to consider him a world champion.
Well, dude, I love Mr. Perfect. And the irony of this little quick snippet is I first started watching him because I thought he was in Kindergarten Cop with Schwarzenegger, Richard Tyson, who plays the antagonist. I thought it was Mr. Perfect when I was a kid. And I was like, oh, this guy's so cool, dude. And then, fast forward years later, I'm like, they don't look really anything alike. But, dude, Mr. Perfect was almost on my list, dude. That was very close for me to not have him on there. It was a coin toss.
Totally underrated. Completely underrated.
So
which is weird because for like purists, he's kind of like the guy. He's one of our guys. Like, yeah. But again, it's for people again like us where we're like, you need to watch him.
So I'm gonna go a little bit out of order now because I feel like there's just one that can link really quickly, and two of us have this on this list. So I'm gonna kick it over to Scarps, and then I'll fill in all of the blanks he leaves. For Bret the Hitman Hart. Go for it, Scarps.
All right. So, Bret, dude, is just otherworldly when it came to wrestling. His technical prowess, his execution, the fact that he was
the excellence of his execution?
The excellence of execution, right? And he was such a true and pure student of wrestling. Just that, and really just the legacy of his family before he even came into it, just with his dad and his family. Hart had some of the most incredible matches I had ever seen when I was younger. And if he wasn't on my list, I would have been like smoking something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm the same way. That like he's up there in my like when I first started putting this list together, there was 3 that were really, really easy, and he was one of them. I feel like as a kid, I wasn't as into him. It was almost later where I gained more and more of an appreciation for the actual ring work. Because I feel like when I got big back into wrestling after having a hiatus from being very young, was his kind of time in WCW. And though there's some great matches with him in WCW, with Flair, with Sting, some cool things there, but Goldberg ruining everything. Really didn't get to see kind of the perfection that you could have got out of him. What I really do, I keep going back to this. See if you can find some of his work from Stampede. when he was really first getting into the business. It's absolutely amazing. He has some great clinics with Davey Boy Smith, with Dynamite Kid. He had Bad News Allen, or Bad News Brown, however you want to call him. At the time, he was Allen. And pretty much anything while he had the North American Championship, he was given like the reins to be the guy. So, in an area where they really showcased wrestling, he put on a bunch of bangers. It was absolutely amazing.
Well,
I already
dude,
talked
if you
about
were a
Piper
kid
with
and
that,
you were doing backyard and living room couch wrestling, right? You had the sharpshooter in your bag, dude. Every kid put a sharpshooter on somebody. There was nobody that didn't.
Listen, I was way more of a Cloverleaf fan. So everyone did the sharpshooter. You throw the Cloverleaf out and no one sees it coming.
Well, and Lindsey, he was huge over there, right? Like Brett was big everywhere at one point or another. So, and I know like just European market in general, he was huge over there, right?
Yeah, massive. Still, like, when he did his most recent signing over here, the queue was literally like nearly a mile long to get to see him. He's the quintessential product of his era, not just from the knowledge that he has, but just how much was built around him. And I don't care where you fall on the wrestling ladder, whether you're just coming in or whether you've been around it for a while. Everybody still talks about the screw job, so everybody still knows about Brett and that sort of part of history, of wrestling history. We've got kids that come to wrestling training now, sort of 5, 6, 7-year-old, who all still know who Bret Hart is, which, if you're wanting a legacy, that's where you head to. Right, 100%.
That's insane. And like you said, 5, 6, 7 years old. That's insane that he still has that type of legacy. To piggyback off of you guys a little bit, for the longest time, and it still might be in my top matches of all time, is his first match with Mr. Perfect at SummerSlam when he wins the IC title. That match made 10-year-old me be like, yes, I want to do this. Like, it was, okay, this is fun to watch, and then it was, I think this is what I want to do. This is where this is what I want to be involved in for the rest of my life.
Was that the match at Caesar's Palace, the Vegas one?
No, it was for SummerSlam 91, they had a match in Madison Square Garden, which obviously the Garden always holds a special place in my heart, but they went out there, and that was Perfect was hurt going into it too. So even more so, like, the two of them just put on this banger of a match. It had everything you wanted from it, like, as you would expect it would.
Yeah, it's on my list of all these matches I have over here on my second screen that I'm trying my best not to just list matches on why you should love these guys, because that's where my head goes. I know I didn't do that great for Piper. I'm trying. I'm trying. But I'm gonna take us as far away from the technical side of things and go back to Lindsey with Mick Foley. You know, no one doesn't love Mick Foley. So give us some reasons why.
So my love of Mick Foley comes from his erraticness mainly. Have you read any? I don't know if you guys have read any of his books or anything like that. Or...
I read his first book.
So, like, he just comes out with the most crazy, crap stuff. Held myself well there. Like, he just comes out with stuff sometimes.
Don't curb yourself.
You can say it. It's okay.
Like, again, stuff like when he was doing backyard stuff, doing a flip off a roof through some tables. Like, it's the type of stuff that you see on the backyard stuff now, where you kind of cringe at it. But when you think it's Mick Foley doing it, you kind of go, it's all right. It's Mick Foley. He knows what he's doing. But, yeah, and again, just the diversity of him. And I love a comedy. I love a good comedy spot. Especially in the sports entertainment side of things. Like, you've got your serious wrestlers, you've got your guys who look the part and act the part, and you stick Mick Foley in with one of them and they lose it because they just don't know how to react to him. But at the same time, he can still have a match where it keeps you that far on the edge of your seat because he's that crazy, you don't know what's going to come next. That, again, the investment and the energy that he brings to stuff like that, love it.
The moment that will always be burnt in my mind is obviously the Mick Foley versus Undertaker at Hell in the Cell. And the actual moment for me is Terry Funk coming out and looking really concerned. And when you have a maniac like that come out and look scared for someone else's well-being, you're like, oh no, we've now crossed the threshold of what we've suspended disbelief a lot at this moment in time. And then when he crawls back into that ring, you're just like, oh, this guy, he's a whole different kind of machine coming out there, looking nothing like any other wrestler looks like, and just going out there knowing that, oh, listen, he might not be able to beat you up, but you're going to have to do a lot of damage to keep him down.
Yeah.
Well, and that's a guy that you expect to be bloody. You know, like Lindsey had said in the beginning, and you just touched upon. Obviously, we know what he looks like when he's not bleeding all over the ring. But, I mean, you expected him to be just pouring blood by the end of his match, man. And as cringe as it could be, seeing some people do it, with, like you said, Lindsey, with Mick, it was like, we expect this guy to go in and get his butt whooped and just really take a beating.
Yeah.
What was it? 27 chair shots or whatever it was from The Rock.
Yeah. Like, you guys, I'm assuming that you have gone through a table at some point in your career. Like,
not me. Have you, Steve?
No.
Have
you been the lucky one?
I was usually on the quote unquote wrestling match.
I have.
You have.
That makes sense. And he's not even in the business.
But I have gone through more than one table.
That's just because you're an idiot.
Oh, that's fair.
Like,
that is fair.
Those tables just break gravity. It's not that actually there's anything there. They just slow the descent. You're still coming down hard as hell. They're just slowing the descent a little bit. And coming off the top of that cage, like, nah. No, even the announce table, it's set up, it's just, you're hitting that floor hard enough as it is. Like, if you hit the canvas hard, you're going to put your back out. If you go through the ring from the top onto the canvas, that's bad enough. But going off the other side, nah, not for me. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I've done the cement
What was he, 15, 20 feet up?
Mm-hmm.
I've done the cement bumps where someone closes lines you on the outside, and that hurts enough to see stars, let alone from the top of a Hell in a Cell.
when you hit the concrete on the outside of the ring and it sounds like meat is just slapping on the floor.
Yeah, but think about that. Up. Keep going.
No.
Steve.
Man.
So this one was my, I think, most surprising
real quick.
list.
I just want to get one more Foley thing. On the other side of things, on a personal note for me and Mr. Showtime, Mick Foley's the nicest man I've ever met in pro wrestling. This is a guy who had no reason to know who we were and met us at 2 different points, 6 months apart, and remembered who we were. And didn't spend more than 5 minutes with us.
It was, that's one of my favorite, like, personal stories with Mick, where there was one, I met him once, we had like a 5-minute conversation. I was like, hey, how's it going? I'm Mike. And he goes, hi, I'm Mick. And I'm like, no shit. And then a couple weeks later, we went to another show with the same promotion. And I hear someone say, hey, hold the elevator. So I hold the elevator for him and his agent. They come on. I'm like, oh, Mick, great to see you again. So to make sure that he knows that we met, because that was my own little thing. And he goes, oh, Mike, how's it going? And I was just like, very well now. And so, like, the fact that he just remembered who I was, and it was months later, like, yeah, he knows me. Like, I popped for that one. I don't pop very often.
It was easily 6 months. It was
particularly
easily like 6 months later.
But, like, yeah, like, that just goes to show the type of person he is, that, like, that he just remembers that kind of stuff. That's very politician-esque, but, like, with a good heart.
A dude that's got hit in the face as many times as he has, to remember you on top of it is pretty impressive, you know?
Do you go full circle? You get hit so many times that it becomes easier.
You become a genius.
Yeah, he's got so much CTE that he's actually just the smartest person in the world now.
He did the stand-up show, and it toured over here, and he stayed until nearly 1:30 in the morning doing fan signings. Like the show finished at, I think it was about 11:15, and he stayed so late to make sure every single person got spoken to, got welcomed, had a bit of chat. Like, yeah, thoroughly given and just a lovely bloke, lovely guy.
That's awesome. That's amazing. That's the type of thing I like to hear too.
Yeah. So we love you, Mick, because obviously he's listening to this one.
Oh, for sure.
He has to be. Him, Tony Khan.
Because he would.
Triple H doesn't listen to us though.
So Steve, this was my most surprising on your list. I really didn't see this one coming. Not because this wrestler isn't fantastic, but just didn't see it coming. So you have Finn Balor on here. Tell me about it.
I do have Finn Balor on here. So Finn Balor, when he was Prince Devitt, is what introduced me to current Japanese wrestling. And it wasn't even his matches that introduced me to it. It was the pictures floating around of him doing his body paint stuff beforehand. And the fact that he had like full on latex body paint that they did like a Venom gimmick from the comic books. And it looked like Venom and Carnage. And it looked like Carnage. And I was like, oh man, like I got to find out who this guy is, because if he can wrestle at all, he might be my new favorite active wrestler. And I remember the first thing I found from him was a match between him and Davey Richards when Davey Richards was the Ring of Honor heavyweight champion. And he was actually challenging Balor, Devitt, whatever you want to call him, for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship. And Balor came out to the theme song from Karate Kid. He came out to You're the Best Around. And I popped. And then I watched the match, and he was a great wrestler. And then I kept watching his stuff. I was like, this is really cool. And then all of his stuff in NXT, the first run in NXT, cemented me as a Finn Balor fan. Like he gets both sides of it. He understands the entertainment aspect of it with the stuff with the demon and things like that, where he has, I know Showtime, you talk about there's not enough mysticism in wrestling. Well,
where is it?
Demon Finn Balor, the Demon Finn Balor exudes that.
Yeah.
And then on the other side of things, you need a wrestling match. Finn Balor will put on a wrestling match. And though he is not the biggest dude in the world, and I think that's part of what resonates with me a little bit, is growing up, I was not the biggest guy in the world. So seeing guys who are not the biggest guys also still hold a special place in my heart. But he looks like the athlete. He looks like the wrestler. He might not be 6'5", but when you put him in there, he still looks like he's a serious competitor. And that holds very true to me. And that, again, that suspends the disbelief for me that, okay, well, you're right. He doesn't look like Brock Lesnar, but he still looks like an athlete. He looks like he should be able to go.
Yeah, Steve, if I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times, particularly around the comedy gimmick. A comedy gimmick never gets over with me if you're not also a good wrestler. The same thing with the mysticism kind of things. Like if you're just going to be a monster and go out there and squash people, I've seen that 100 times. I don't need a 2-minute match. But if you can go out there, have that mysticism, go out there, put on a good match that fits that mysticism kind of gimmick that you're running, I'm all in. That's why when I saw this, I was like, oh, you mean the demon angle? And you were like, no, go before that. And I was like, okay, I'm here.
I will say this. One of the matches that, if you want to go back and check out Balor really putting on a clinic with somebody.
Sorry, I keep freezing.
His match with...
we got you.
We're back now. But go back and check out the Balor Brock Lesnar match from Royal Rumble that they had for the Universal title. That match is awesome. And again, it really showcases how good Brock is as well. But the fact of the matter is it's one of those matches where Finn Balor makes you believe he might win the Universal title that night as just the man Finn Balor too. But that was kind of one of them. Yeah. He's one of those guys who, one of the few in the last 20 years that really, really pulled me in. All right, so who you got next, Showtime?
So So I'm actually, I'll quote Piper again. Just when you think you know all the answers, I change the questions. I'm gonna change the a little bit of the format here, and we're talking about our favorites of all
How
time.
dare you?
Hey, listen, I make
He's
the
always
rules.
making-
When I make the rules,
He's always making up
I
his
can do
own
whatever I want.
rules. This
I
is
do what
why
I
he's the
want.
heel.
I think
You
of
know.
myself more of a tweener, but that's fine. So I want to kind of look at, it's tough to get people who are like active and not have a huge catalog to kind of go back to, but love to know everyone's kind of like current favorite. You kind of hit on it really quickly. Someone who like in 10 years, if we do this again, these are the people that you think might sneak into this. And Lindsey, I'll go back in that order. How about you? Why don't you start with us?
I'm going old school. I'm putting over one of my boys. So
You won't do it.
Alex Andrews, he's currently our Grand Slam champion. Young lad, he's only 21-year-old. He's already wrestled in America. He's worked some fantastic matches, and he's just so like I've known him. We started training him when he was 15. And back then, he was this skinny little kid that wouldn't say anything to anybody. We had him his face because he's a pretty boy, so it just made sense to put him in his face. And we turned him heel, and that has been the best thing that has ever happened. Giving him that creative control and that push as a heel, where he can just be whatever he needs to be, is being the best thing. And he's now one of the most charismatic wrestlers I've seen in recent times, coming up from the indies in the UK. Thoroughly dislikable, goddamn gorgeous, and just his ring psychology and his ring awareness when he's going through matches and watching him plan things, and he agents other people now, like listening to him. The knowledge that kid has now is just unreal. So yeah, I'm putting my boy Alex Andrews over. So watch this space. 10 years time, he's going to be he's going to be getting me tickets to WrestleMania.
Until you said ring awareness, I thought you were talking about scarps. Utterly dislikable and just completely gorgeous.
Once upon a time. I'm still utterly dislikable, fortunately.
I'm not rude.
I am not rude.
I'm all for putting over your own. So, Lindsey, a couple questions. So I'm not very familiar with him, so I'll fix that after this show. But
for sure.
Where can people see him? Like where's the best way for people to experience Alex?
At the moment on OIWA Worldwide, there's a match on there with him and Thomas Griffin from, I believe it was the Alpha and Omega show. He's also got a few other matches that are due to go up on the contract page as well. He was on North, so I dropped a link through to you earlier. Showtime for North Wrestling in the UK. He did a Royal Rumble at North. That was just fire. He's done loads of local shows, but they're not online. But yeah, another match for you to watch is him and Matt Vandergriff, who is another one that is up and coming and amazing as well.
Awesome. And for everyone listening, we'll make sure we have those links in the bottom, somewhere down here for anyone who wants to check it out, because I'm such a big fan of finding someone new. I could say that we heard about him first, even if that's clearly not true, but I will still say it. So Scarps, I'm going to go to you.
All the time.
Yeah, whatever. Fact check me. I dare you. Scarps, your current wrestling that you're popping for.
Well, I mean, look, everybody loves right now, and I say everybody, I mean like the three of us, possibly the four of us in this love Joe Hendry. Everybody's kind of popping for him right now, and I mean, I want to throw Ospreay in there too, though. Just the work that he's been doing, pretty much his entire career, but especially as of late, has been awesome.
Say his name and he appears.
It's like how did you put it? He's like this Scottish toothy Beetlejuice that just comes out of nowhere.
I don't know. It's been a long time since I've seen someone be able to take their own kind of image, put their whole brand in the spotlight. I guarantee you, the last couple shows of TNA, their viewership has to be up. I haven't checked it yet. I have been planning, meaning to do that, but he's definitely got quite a few eyeballs on him right now. I know even Bully Ray is saying on the Busted Open podcast that they need to put a belt on him. He just needs to to get more of a space. He brought the people there, and I want to see more of Joe Andrew. I'm with you on that. Steven. Oh, sorry, Lindsay, please go.
No, I was just about to say he's done some amazing shows on the indie circuit here in the UK. He's been around here for a while, so we're lucky enough to have had him first. And yeah,
she has actually seen him first.
Again, in that North Wrestling. There's some links on their YouTube page for some of Joe's matches, and he's as boss as he comes across.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm popping for him right now, and you sent us some of those matches.
Yeah,
and I've been looking for some good matches of him. I expect to see a bit more of him in the coming weeks and months at TNA. Yeah. They're smart enough to know when people are looking at somebody.
Yeah.
We said last week we want him to tag team with R-Truth.
Oh, that would be so good.
And I got dibs on manager.
I believe in the truth.
Steven, why don't you give me your current worker?
So my two are MJF for obvious reasons. I think that kid is the future of the business. He's still in his 20s. He wrestles like he's in his 30s. He knows what he's supposed to be doing. He knows who he's supposed to be. When he was a heel, he was the biggest. He had the most amount of heat out of anybody. As the babyface that they made him be because he had to do everything, they were popping for him, and he was still just being the heel. He's got that Ric Flair, Shawn Michaels aspect where he's probably going to be just as over as a face or a heel in the future, but he's never really going to change his gimmick. He's still going to be like Flair was the dirtiest player in the game, even when he was the babyface. It's just you cheered when you gave him a nut shot. So I think MJF is going to be that guy. He's the new school Flair, the new school Piper. I would love if MJF got to WWE and we could see almost like a passing of the torch at this point between him and Cody. I would love to see a good long run between him and Cody for the WWE title. That would be amazing. I don't know if that's ever going to happen in the amount of time that we have left for Cody still wrestling, but that would be cool. And the other one is, mommy. Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley is, as far as current wrestlers, I don't think she's my favorite current female wrestler. She's just my favorite current wrestler. Everything she does is just right. She does everything right. And I've heard other people that are in the business say the point that Rhea Ripley crosses over and becomes also a mainstream movie star on top of it, I am all for it as well. I could see her taking all the roles that Gina Carano used to get, all the roles that Ronda Rousey used to get, all of that stuff. You need a badass woman to play a part. Rhea Ripley's her.
Yeah.
Well, and if she ends up going to Hollywood, hopefully she doesn't follow in the exact same footsteps as Carano and Rousey, because their mouths have gotten them into so much trouble.
See, and I think that's the difference, is I don't think she would. I think she's just a professional. I think I've met her a few times. Nicest lady in the world behind the scenes. Not to mention, I mean, is there any real dispute? She's probably if not the hottest star in the WWE right now, in the top three or four. Like,
hottest.
You could make an argument,
100%.
but like she's probably selling just as much merch as, I don't know, almost anybody.
Yeah.
And you know how you can really prove that she's one of the hottest? She's also on my list. I think literally, I'm just going to echo a couple things you just said. I think she's the best wrestler on TV right now. Like there's an argument. I have a second one that you can argue for. It doesn't matter, male, female. Like every single one of her matches, I pop. She makes everybody look better when they're in the ring with her. She actually wrestles real matches. And Lindsey, I know that you haven't heard me say this 1,000 times, but these guys can. One of the things that are the biggest sticking points in a match is the pace of a match, where like people want to try to do a bunch of really cool stuff, but then they kind of do it slow, and it just kind of ruins it for me. Her pace of match is insane. She is so fast and so powerful that I'm completely just gushing over every single one of her matches that are out there right now. I think that her match with Becky at WrestleMania is currently on my list of best matches of the year at this point in time. There's only 2 matches on there at this point in time, and that's one of them. I think it was the best match of Mania this year. I know I've watched a bunch of things that said who they thought the best matches were, and people aren't as over on this match as I am, but it was great. She threw that Northern Lights that I've been begging people to start throwing more other than Hook, and again, because she listens to the show and she wanted to do that one for me. But it was
obviously.
Yeah, obviously. So I'm with it. I can't wait. And if anyone's listened to these shows, you guys know how upset I am that she had to vacate the title and is off TV, and it really bothers me. But I promise you, I won't go on a long tangent now about it. But I really want to. And then the other person on this list, Scarps actually said with Will Ospreay. I said that I'm on the bandwagon. I'm driving the bandwagon at first. When he first came to AEW, I was a little critical, mostly because I was afraid he was going to hurt himself. He was really not reckless, but he was doing these crazy high spots. And after that first match with Takeshita, he kind of pulled it back a little bit for these moves to make sense. I think that the Bryan Danielson match that he just had is the other one that's on my match of the year. Those are the 2 that I'm looking at right now for that list I want to do in December. But he is phenomenal. And after all that criticism, I know not just from us, but a lot of people were saying similar things of like, if you don't slow down, you're not going to have a huge career because you're just going to be hurt the whole time. He ripped a promo where he just told everybody, listen, I'm the greatest that there is. Stop telling me how to do my craft. And I'm just going to go out there and have banger after banger. And after he said that to me, I was like, okay, well, listen then. Then I'm fully in. You gave me permission to love all this stuff. So those are the 2 that I have on my list right now. I think that I think some of these guys that we're talking about right now is the future of wrestling for the next 10 years. And I'm really excited about it. And, who knows? Alex Andrews might bring us to the next 20 years. I'm really excited to start leaning in and seeing him.
I agree with Ospreay, and again, it's something that was very poignant when he was in the Indies over here. Like that was the level and the amount of energy that people here expected to see. And if he was pulling out that stuff, which I can guarantee you now he was, when he was on the Indies getting paid a hell of a lot less, then yeah, for a fact that's why it's like we always say there's a market for everything in wrestling. So there's a market for what Will Ospreay does, there's a market for death matches, there's a market for every part of it because the fans are there for it. He just again cornered the market between him and Ricochet, between that sort of fast-paced, high-flying, and it potentially more choreographed than a lot of people can get away with when it comes to wrestling, but it's got the fans there, so yeah, go for it.
But I will say this though, I do agree it is a little bit more choreographed, but when Ospreay and Ricochet were doing it, they were the first ones to do it. So like when you start something, everyone else just and everyone else tries to emulate it, then it becomes everyone else that's doing it, it looks not as good as that first time a lot of times for me. And Ospreay and Ricochet, like their stuff, honestly, it looked like a kung fu movie. It was Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. It was stuff like that. And them doing it originally for their series, that's one thing. But then the problem is I was watching 5'3", 103-pound kids on the indies doing it. And I was like, it's not the same when you do it. One, you don't look like a grown man. Two, I just watched this. You're literally doing the same match that they just did. So what you're doing isn't cool because it's not original now. I just want to bring up that out of all of our picks for current wrestlers that could be our favorites in 5 or 10 years, there's almost no Americans.
I mean, that's the landscape right now, right? Like, who is the up and coming American that's out there, right? that people are excited about?
And JF Braun Breaker. That's about it.
Braun
Really, all
Breaker.
you got.
Orange Cassidy.
You shut your whore mouth.
No.
If we did this list,
Lindsey, the fact that you said no to this, I love you even more now because
Dude, we've been talking about this nonsense for like a month now, and I bring him up every week for no reason.
Scarps
brings
get your hands out of your
he
pockets.
brings up Orange Cassidy just to piss me off.
No.
Steve, I think if we did this list next year, Braun Breaker would probably be in this spot. But really, the most I've seen, like I don't watch NXT all that extensively, so all I really have are these silly squash matches, which I mentioned earlier. I'm not a big fan of it, and he's not even in the King of Ring tournament. So, like, when am I going to see something?
Hopefully soon.
I'll go back to kind of where we were at before, and I'm gonna share Lindsay's next one with her because I'm contractually obligated to, but I'll let Lindsay tell us the truth.
Oh my god! So again, for me, it's comedy again. You know that I think that's what I keep falling back into. I think it is that sort of like quirkiness. It's R-Truth, or Ron Killens if we're going to go the other way of it. But yeah, like again, just so quirky and dynamic and stupid, but really nosy stuff. Like just gets where things need to fit. Like you can come out and you can be ridiculous and you can be stupid with things, but if it doesn't fit in the rest of what's going on, then you just look like an idiot. He knows he's going to look like an idiot. He plans to look like an idiot. The idiot spot fits because that's the seriousness of everything else around him. And every single time he nails it, but then you stick him in a match and you let him go and he's amazing. And you think, how's this idiot managing to pull off some of these matches? Like, there must be something in there. And I know Eric Young kind of, when he was going through his bit in TNA and there was like that weird sort of storyline with him, he tried it a little bit, but failed massively, especially when it like, R-Truth is class. He's class in the ring, class character work, funny as hell, likable as hell. And yeah, love him.
And in his 50s.
Yeah. As
Like,
if.
Last standing person from the Attitude Era? Is that a true sentence? He's at least one of the last man standing from the Attitude Era.
Yeah.
I guess you can count the Rock.
I mean, maybe him and Edge, Copeland, maybe
Billy Gunn,
Copeland and Christian. Billy Gunn, kind of.
Billy Gunn,
Billy Gunn's at least kind of fallen off a little bit. Truth is still wrestling at the same level he was in 2002.
He's tag team champion. Like, like he's there. He's at the pinnacle of the sport at this point in time. I'm with you, Lindsay. My definition of a great comedy act is someone who can get you laughing your ass off and 10 minutes later impress you in the ring. I would like to see, my only critique of him right now is I would like him to stop doing so much of the John Cena moveset and getting back to like showing us more that he can really wrestle still. Him winning the NWA title back in the day was awesome. Like he's one of those people that were a world champion. I wish he can get a world title with WWE, even if it's a 30-second championship. Like Steve was saying before, like cash in Priest Money in the Bank, and win it, and then they have to have an immediate match with Priest and he can lose it. Just so in the record books, his name's in there with that. He cracks me up every time. The way he talks about my childhood hero watching John Cena when he's older than John Cena, it just kills me. The Judgment Day stuff he's done recently, he's so funny. Randomly, an unsung match of his that I think people should go back is he fought Wade Barrett before Wade Barrett hung up his boots, and that was a really good one. And then anything with the 24/7 championship. Does R-Truth have more championships than anybody
That
else?
was hilarious.
Since he's won that one like 47 times.
I think so. I don't know.
That
He
was-
might
I've
be
heard
up there
some
with
of his-
whoever's held like the original hardcore title like 47 times too, or something like that. Like Crash Holly has like 30 reigns as the hardcore champion.
There's some really good interviews with him talking about them coming up with ideas for the 24/7 title, and like, hey, we're thinking about doing it here. That's a weird spot. Let's see where this takes us. So like that whole run was so funny. He's got so much and so much longevity. Like he's just always there and always having fun. Still looks 30 years younger than me,
Yeah.
even though he's older than I am. Like over 10 years older than I am. So I'm with you. And again, like I said before we started recording, I couldn't let somebody else have R-Truth by himself on a top thing as much as I gush over him every single week. So I love that. That was my favorite surprise pick that someone else put on this list other than me.
Yeah. Again, I think he's one of those guys where I watch him and I think I will get on with you because you're my level of crazy.
Exactly. The
Now you're speaking our language.
exactly, yeah. Oh, and I have to say that when he goes into the Royal Rumble and brings out a ladder and tries to get the Money in the Bank, like it's so stupid and it just kills me every time. Like Kane's like, what are you doing? Just absolutely kills me. Steven, we're gonna go to you. Another one that I knew was gonna be on this list, but tell us about Ricky Steamboat.
Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Again, this is like I said, my 1 and 2 are really a 1A and a 2A, 1A and 1B rather. Steamboat and Douglas are my two favorite wrestlers of all time. Ricky Steamboat is as far as in ring, he is my favorite wrestler of all time. The matches he's had, the absolute classics that he's had. And again, being a smaller kid growing up, seeing someone that was a high flyer was huge. And you won't find a high flyer that does it better. You can say Rey Mysterio might be the greatest high flyer of all time, and I won't disagree with you. But Ricky Steamboat perfected high flying at a time when most guys, especially guys that were built like that, were not doing high flying. His top rope crossbody is an absolute thing of beauty. You will not find a better arm drag in the business, no matter how far back you go. His WrestleMania 3 match with Randy Savage is on everyone's top 10 list, if not in their number one spot. His hour-long matches, again, I'm going to say that 60-minute, 1 hour matches with Ric Flair. And you can watch them and not be bored at all during an entire hour of a match. They would get to the 20-minute mark and just get going. They went out there and I know I've heard Flair say it like this. They went out there and they did what the Marquis said. They wrestled. And if you can find me a bad Ricky Steamboat match, I'll watch it just to say I watched a bad Ricky Steamboat match because I don't know where they exist.
I'm with you. I may or may not want to talk about the trilogy of matches that he and Ric Flair had later. Maybe I'll talk about it later. Because that stuff is just fantastically built. It had them both going. Like there's just so many good matches in his portfolio. Like, and I think when you look back at some of the most influential wrestlers of all times, he is one of the unsung heroes, in my opinion, because you talk about Hogan and Flair and some of these bigger names. Not that he's not a big name, but like he never hits that marquee name. But almost everyone in wrestling has taken from him and Macho throughout the years. Like you see so much of their style in the likes of Shawn Michaels and the likes of some of these other guys that got really big, like leading into the Attitude Era and then to today. Like the things that he did could go into any match today and you would think it was new and fresh, but it happened 40 years ago.
He doesn't get enough credit for his tag team work either. So his work as as NWA Tag Team Champions with Jay Youngblood, I've heard him say that that's some of the most fun he had. And then a big surprise, he was Tag Team Champions with Shane Douglas, by the way, just for the note. But they had an absolute killer program between them and the Hollywood Blondes, which was pre-Stone Cold when he was stunning Steve Austin and Brian Pillman. And those four guys would just go out there and tear the house down. And they knew they had to steal the house from guys like Flair and Hogan. And they were doing it.
And they were doing it, succeeding.
Yeah.
Good. I'm going to move on.
I'm good on Ricky Steamboat. I mean, I could talk about him for another 4 hours if you want, but
don't worry, I'll give you a chance to in a little bit.
Yep.
The next one, if you're counting, you might be able to count that I have 6 people on this list because I make the rules. But I'm gonna kick it over to Scarps because we have one that we're sharing here. Scarps, why don't you tell me about the bad guy?
So, all right, man. I'm going back to a lot of my, since I never actually wrestled, stories. I used to Razor's Edge people into the swimming pool on a daily basis in the summer. Just Scott Hall, man, Razor Ramon, various other names he's had throughout his career, I'm sure. But dude, he was a trendsetter for me because he, for me, was the first heel that I actually really always wanted to watch. I wanted to see him. I didn't even want to see him get beaten, dude. Like, he was a heel, but I wanted to see him win. I loved him, dude. I absolutely loved him as a wrestler. His character work, I thought, was just ahead of its time.
I'm with you. The reason why I wanted to share this one so much with you, because I was going to talk about a lot of different things. Again, look back at AWA. If you guys haven't seen the AWA all that much, they have some of the best wrestling, in my opinion, in the history of wrestling. He was tag team champions with Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig at the time. He fought Kurt Hennig for the world championship, and that he had some great stuff with Stan Hansen, Rick Martel. He was never their champion, but he put on some amazing matches at that time. He is a part of arguably the biggest stable of all times with starting the NWO. He has the first ever ladder match at WrestleMania, which was such a good match. And figuring out how to make that really work for the Intercontinental title. Putting over the 1-2-3 Kid was awesome. He was such a big star, and letting him get that win was something that people didn't really do all that much. And for the bad guy to do it, I know it's a gimmick and all that stuff, but he put other people before him in a lot of cases. I'm sure he put himself in front of other people as well, but you have proof that he put other people out there in order to elevate them to a different echelon than they were before they got in the ring with him. So he's somebody that I absolutely always loved. Again, check it out with the AWA stuff. He looks so different than when he comes in with the
awesome Magnum, with his awesome Magnum PI mustache. Oh my God, it's so epic.
But he's so big too, and he's just massive. Puts on some great matches. And Scarps, I'm with you. There's very few moves that I get mad when people kick out of, and it's the Razor's Edge. And I just saw a back-to-back WWE show, so let's see how happy I am about that.
Sorry, I was just going to say everything with how he moved, not just sort of his big moves, his strike weight. Razor Ramon's strike weight to this day is something that my guys try to bring in, and if they can't do it, then they're told don't, because his strikes were just so crisp and so beautiful, but so feather-light, actually on the connection, but they just sounded and looked beautiful.
Oh, and his punches were so good.
Moves. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Bro, and he just had swagger, bro. Come on.
He's one of those guys that if you watch the A&E biography about him, the one thing that everyone keeps saying, they're like, he was the coolest wrestler in the world. He was the coolest guy you'll ever meet, no matter what he did, no matter how goofy it seemed. All of a sudden, he's that guy that, well, I put my jacket on inside out, and it worked. All of a sudden, it was cool because he did it. You know, he wore the stupid Tupac bandana, and it was okay because it was Scott Hall. You know, what the hell? Also, as to talk about Scarp saying that his character work, let's not forget about the character work that he gave to other people. He's the guy that came up with the Sting gimmick the Crow gimmick for Sting. He's the one who told him, like, hey, have you seen this movie? You should do this.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and even Sting has said that it's like, yeah, me and Scott were talking about it. He's like, I can't do this gimmick, but you should do this gimmick. So,
and then obviously, Razor Ramon is Scarface, and like, but you don't always, you can't really put it together. Like, if you just watch Scarface and you watch him wrestle, I would never connect those two. But then when you say it, it's like, oh, okay, I get it, because he made it feel fresh. I made it feel like it was 100% original out of his head. All right, so we all have one wrestler left. So I want to just kind of give an honorable mention, because I can't help myself. And you can say I couldn't even keep it to 5. I made it to 6 to be able to talk about. I'm going to ramble off some names. I'm not going to really talk about them. I'm just going to say people I considered for this list that I really wanted to have on here. For me, it was Dean Malenko. Love you, Dean. The DDP, Junkyard Dog, Bam Bam Bigelow, and Rick Rude. These guys are all guys that like I really wanted to make on this list, and I just didn't have enough spots. I even tried to talk everybody into making it a top 10, but knowing that we're already, as long as we are in this cast would never have ended. Steven, why don't you run down your names?
All right, so I also have Dean Malenko. If you want to go back and watch technical wrestling, Dean Malenko, that guy. Kerry Von Erich, the Texas Tornado. Just amazing. He was always kind of my favorite Von Erich. AJ Styles, William Regal, and Fit Finley are both on my list. They're kind of tied in there if you want to go back, especially since the amount of times that they've fought each other. And my last one is Rick Steiner. Rick Steiner's work is epic back in the day. And the only reason why he's probably not on my list is because I'm probably going to include the Steiner brothers on our top list of tag teams at some point.
Lindsey, you have anybody that didn't make the list? Anyone at home you want to give another shout out to? I'm happy to let that in there too.
Yeah. So who didn't make my list? Definitely Kazarian. I know we touched on it earlier. Again, old school TNA, Chris Sabin and Alex Shelley as well. Just some of the most beautiful work I've seen them guys working as a tag team. The Motor City Machine Guns, phenomenal. Like, love it. Newer guys, again, I'll name drop a few. So there's Dante Smiley, who's done some work with NWA and AEW. If you're talking like the physique of a wrestler, he's very much like Finn Balor, where there's like 18 pecs on this kid, like, and he just puts the graft in all the time. Looks fantastic. And another guy that's coming up through he's actually just done a spot with TNA recently, and I mentioned him earlier, Matt Vandergriff. He will probably be on my list again for upcoming, just because he's this quiet young lad obsessed with Harry Potter, and then like just gets in the ring and it's like a total different beast. It's amazing. So yeah, never mind.
It's awesome. Scarps, don't list off everybody in the Attitude Era, but like who didn't make your list here?
Cool. So the Big Boss Man didn't make my list. Loved the Big Boss Man when I was a kid. Just the fact that he was a monster and he was so athletic for his size. And I mean, being tag team champ, having success in the ring, I thought he was great. Rey Mysterio Jr., who Steve touched upon earlier, has always been a favorite of mine. And other than that, since you said don't list everybody in the Attitude Era, The Rock and Stone Cold, I mean, they're always in my conversation.
Awesome. All right, so we have the final. This is in no rank order. I kind of bounced around our lists just to keep it moving, but I'm going to kick it over to Lindsey and Scarps because you guys share your last one. Yeah. He's actually the one that I like to root for, to root against the most. Like I wanted all of my favorite guys to beat this guy. And it took me a long time to realize it's because I like him so much that I wanted to see him lose to the other guys. You know, got to grow up and understand the business a little bit more. But Lindsey, I'm going to kick it to you first. Tell me about the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels.
Yeah, again, if I look in old school, charismatic, able to just own the ring when he gets there. Not even from the ring, just as soon as that kid walks out of the curtain or from Gorilla on the stage, front and center. Everybody pays attention to him. Is he controversial? Yes. Is there some things that maybe aren't as tight as other wrestlers? Definitely. But he just oozes charisma. And again, that can carry him through most matches. Do I like the overselling? Not at all. But, yeah.
So you guys realize when you have Lindsey say stuff, because she is very knowledgeable, works in the business, when she speaks before me and we're talking about the same guy, it's kind of pointless for me to say anything after that.
Plus, her accent makes her sound so much better than you.
Scarps,
no, I mean,
you know that's not
she's
just for
right,
Lindsey,
though.
right?
Well, yeah, it's really anybody. But I mean, dude, HBK, like just like Lindsey said, I mean, the charisma that this man had, he woke up and peed charisma. That was HBK, and it's just you either loved him or hated him. Like Showtime said, I mean, he just wanted to see him lose. I loved him personally. I mean, I thought he was awesome, and then Attitude Era, DX, you know, and just it was a perfect fit and just a great evolution to his story. And I thought he was a phenomenal wrestler.
I may have said I wanted to see him lose, but like the part of that sentence you need to really hone in is I wanted to see him. That's how good he was, is that even though I wanted him to lose to the people like Bret Hart and some other people, like I wanted him to be the opponent. So like I think that just goes to show how good he really was. And there is a stretch of like WrestleManias where really the only match worth watching is his, no matter who he's fighting. Not to discredit too many other people's, but
don't forget, you should be surprised when he breaks out actual wrestling moves.
Oh yeah, because if you're not surprised, the commentators will tell you to be surprised. Every single match he has with somebody when he wrestles.
I can't believe he's ground wrestling against Kurt Angle or Bret Hart or anyone else.
Or Chris Jericho.
The man can bump, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like,
when I heard them say it for like the 7th time, and I'm like, oh, you guys, are we really supposed to still be shocked? Steven, I'm going to go to you. Again, this is somebody who I knew was going to be on your list before we got into this, knowing you as well. But tell me about the icon.
The man called Sting. This is so kind of how we said Hogan is kind of everyone's first favorite wrestler, I guess. Sting took over that spot for me. Hogan was what got me into WWF, WWE, whatever you want to call it at the time. But I had always kind of known about Sting. And then I turned 10 years old and I got to see NWA WCW for the first time. And there was Sting. And he was everything that you wanted, that they tried to push the Ultimate Warrior to be. But then he was also everything the Ultimate Warrior wasn't. He was putting on these amazing matches. He had the charisma. For a kid, the face makeup and the charisma and the energy that he brought, not to mention the jackets that he wore that didn't go past his belly button. Come on, that is huge. But also, as far as athleticism goes, there's a a string where there's not too many people in the world, and even now that I know of, that threw a better dropkick than Sting. You know, he T-boned some 6'3" guys with that dropkick, and he's not a small dude by any means. Every bit of 6'3", 260, had the bodybuilder physique, and then streamlined it out to be a little bit more athletic. I love that he was always able to reinvent his character, whether it was Surfer Sting or Crow Sting or Wolfpack Sting or Joker Sting or doing a schizophrenic version of either one of those. I remember seeing a show where he started the show as Wolfpack Sting and ended the show as Crow Sting. You know, like it was stuff like that. His character work has always been on point. I know Showtime, you have said there is nothing you think Sting can't do, and I agree with that. And again, his in-ring work is amazing. He's one of those guys, how Lindsey said, as far as Scott Hall's striking, Sting's striking was so unique that it made me believe that it worked for him. I don't think everyone else could do it, but it worked for him.
And not to mention, the man is extremely humble.
So humble. He's one of those guys who's not afraid to get other people over. Like, that's one of those things.
Sting is like literally your everyman. You know what I mean? Yeah.
He's your everyman millionaire. It's weird how it works out like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, you want to go back and watch matches with him and Flair. Maybe avoid Starrcade 97 with him and Hogan. But go back and watch him and Rick Rude matches over the U.S. title and the WCW International title. Those matches just, oh my God, the feuds he has with Rick Rude and Rick Rude's work. It gives you a reason to watch Rick Rude as well.
Yeah, some of the stuff that he did in TNA with AJ. So when he sort of passed over to AJ, some of the matches around that time as well were phenomenal. Really, really good as well.
Once again, pun intended.
Yeah, pun intended. I think Joker Sting is actually the most underrated version of him. That stuff is very entertaining. And I know that didn't have as many eyeballs on it as some of the earlier iterations of Sting, but that Joker Sting, the face paint is awesome. And like that, like unhinged Sting is so fun to watch.
Well, and that's kind of, like I said, that's kind of his best character work, his best all-around character work. And I remember, because we saw, the three of us saw the Sting Hogan, basically Hogan's actual last match live. Yep. It was at Bound for Glory in Philly. And that match is what I sold Scarps on, because everything else, it was, hey, they're doing a pay-per-view. We can get tickets for $30. Let's go. It's in Philly. And he's like, nah, man, I can't. I can't afford it right now. I'm just tight on everything. My next text was, Sting and Hogan are wrestling each other. His text back was, fuck it, I'm in. You beautiful. It was like, you beautiful son of a bitch, I'm in. Yeah, with Ric Flair as a manager.
But that's exactly how that went down. Like, money was really tight. Steve asked me to go, and I was like, "Oh, dude, I'd love to, but I can't swing that." Then he goes, Hogan and Sting, and I was like, "Fuck it, bro, let's go. I'm ready." Like, it was a matter of seconds. I go, "Yeah, I lied. I'm in."
I'm so jealous. Like, tickets over here are extortionate. Like, the prices for tickets here, $30 for a match like that, just for that one match alone. Never mind the fact that it's Bound for Glory. That one match was so worth a lot more than that. Unreal.
It's not like that anymore over here. I'll tell you what. I tried to get WrestleMania tickets in Philly.
It's not.
Woo-hoo.
Right,
okay. So I saved the best for last. I'm not going to lie. So we got the one, the only, the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. My favorite of all times. Specifically, if you want to, like, he's got such a career that for me, if you want to just hone it in on what I think his best is his Horseman days. I think that is, like, him and Dusty is probably my favorite feud of his. It's just so good, and the crowd is so hot when they break Dusty's ankle, and they have to get out of there before the crowd actually kills him. Is the peak of what's going on here. Like, everyone really believes every single thing that's happening out there in this ring. That's great. Like, he has so many, like, I like the list of matches I have over here is endless, so I won't do that. But we touched on it a little bit before. The trilogy between Steamboat is the pinnacle of wrestling, in my opinion. Like, it's just so good. The way that he, like, I don't want to give him all the credit for Sting, but, like, he's the cherry on top of Sting being who he ended up being, right? Where, like, Sting, phenomenal athlete, worked his ass off. He earned everything he needed to, and he earned it well enough that Ric Flair is like, I'm going to put this guy over, and I'm going to put him over well. And those few matches that he had, the time limit draws, like, everyone, like, I don't remember the last time I saw a real time limit draw. These guys used to time limit draw all the time, and everyone loved every second of it. Like, who needs a winner in a match like this? Those were fantastic. His stuff with Harley Race, his stuff with Kerry Von Erich, when you go back to the WCCW stuff, is amazing. It's so much fun. They have so much heat on that. When Kerry Von Erich wins the title at the David Von Erich Memorial Parade, there was so much emotion in that match. So those are some of my favorite things. You can actually, even some of his later stuff, And you guys all saw the top 10 matches of WrestleMania history. I have Shawn Michaels versus Ric Flair on that because I think it's one of my favorite matches from Ric Flair. So late in his career, that match is fantastic. It has all of the story, all of the emotion. And can you believe that Shawn Michaels went there to wrestle Ric Flair? Like, I can't believe he would do something like that.
Believe it.
And,
I can't
right?
can't believe it.
It's so unbelievable. So like those things, like just going back, he's the most decorated champion in all time, be it 16 times or whatever number it really is. He's the man, right? He's the one that everyone emulates themselves after as a heel. Every stable after the Horsemen were kind of the Horsemen, and like he just kind of defined what it is to be a wrestler. And I wish we would have gotten that Mania match of Hogan versus Ric Flair when they were both in their prime, because I think that probably would be my favorite match of all times. But alas, we didn't get that actual one there. But he just has done so much for the business. I know he's been around forever, and not everyone has favorable stuff on the dirtiest player in the game to say. But as a fan, as someone who watches wrestling, go back to any of the stuff in the NWA because he is really the man.
I think.
I mean, he went a little crazy. He did go a little crazy recently, with wooings, because you have to call them wooings. But yeah, I don't disagree with anything you said. Lindsay, I'm sorry I cut you off though.
Oh no, it's absolutely fine. For me, the thing with Flair, I was quite late into understanding Flair. So again, it wasn't until I was in the business that I sat and went, hey, he's been working me the whole time. Like, I detested Flair. Like, everything about me was just horrible and creepy and weird. I couldn't get away with him. And it wasn't until I got into wrestling this side of things where I sat and went, oh, he's actually really damn good. If I've hated him that much, I've hated him for the right reasons. He's bloody good at his job. So, yeah. And I think from an outsider, from a fan perspective, it was that I cannot stand watching him because he's so good at his job.
So good.
And he makes everybody look good. Like, actually, if you look at a lot of his matches, he doesn't do much. He just gets his butt kicked the entire time. Thrown off the top rope, his selling of every move, and then he somehow sneaks out the victory. And you're like, well, how did he do that again? And that's Ric Flair. It's the
or he just goes and gets disqualified and keeps the belt that way,
which is underutilized as well. I wish we did that more.
He did a round table, or what was it, the dinner for three or whatever they do on the network or Peacock or however you view it nowadays, and the sit down was between him, Sting, and Kurt Angle. And his opening statement is one of my favorite ones that he ever gives, is, here I am. I get to have this beautiful dinner. He goes, and he looks at Sting and he goes, with my oldest son. And he looks at Angle and he goes, and with my hero. Because that's how he feels about them. Is like, if you think about it, Sting is the first guy, or at least the biggest guy that Flair ever made. And then Angle, if for all of Flair's technical wrestling ability and his knowledge of that stuff, Angle would probably be the guy that he would go after. And Angle's one of those guys where he's does just as much goofy stuff as Flair does. So yeah, I could see where they would get along.
I can't believe that Angle hasn't made it onto somebody's list, actually.
He should be. Again, this isn't it's favorites. And unfortunately, a lot of Angle's stuff that he did, unfortunately, falls into a realm of, I don't want to get canceled right now culture.
Dude, Benoit was this close to being on my list.
I know, that's the problem. Like, a lot of his stuff is with Jericho and Benoit and
yeah,
a couple names I might not want to say sometimes.
Yeah,
even though they're so good.
It also happened in what we kind of consider kind of a down era of wrestling, at least for us, where I think a lot of us check out, where he just happened to be excellent in a time where we were kind of doing other things in our lives, and it just unfortunately went that way. But I can't say enough how awesome he was, and some of the things that he did there. They're trying to redo it now anyway. It seems like so. But all the respect in the world to Kurt Angle and everything he's done out there. So that is our list. Thank you all for coming and listening to us today. I cannot thank Lindsey enough to gracing us with her presence here. Typically, we'll do a nice little send off with the three of us, but I want the two of you not to say a word. Lindsey, if there is anything you want to talk to our listeners, anything that we should be paying attention to that's happening in your world, this is your opportunity. Please tell them why they should be paying more attention to Lindsey Jordan.
Oh, not so much me in particular, but the OIWA worldwide start taking notice, people. So we are now branching out across America. There's myself here in the UK. I'm just getting back from Germany, where I worked with Fight Back Wrestling over there. Like, dude, watch this space. We are taking over, and we are taking names. So always on the hunt for new talent, always on the hunt for new promotions that we want to be involved with. So yeah, if you know anybody, or if you want to hook me up with anybody, just drop me a message and I will get in touch with them.
We definitely will. Some of Lindsey's contact information, where she wants to be reached, could be in the bottom here, like we usually do. Our Twitter handles or however you want, just give it to us and we'll make sure it's in there. But Lindsey, thank you again. This is an absolute pleasure. Our first ever guest on our show. So you are officially a member for life. That's the honors I want to give you there. And thank you everybody for listening. This was so much fun for us. We usually get more into like what is the best, and I need this criteria. This was just like, what's my favorite? Let's just get it. So thank you all for listening.
Just have fun.
Thank you, Lindsey, for being here. And I think that's a wrap, guys.
Thanks very much,
guys. Thanks again. Lindsey, thank you so much. And everyone have a good night.
Yeah, peace out, Legion.